Hansei. I thought our MC Elliott was gonna come in and say, "Aho, aho," just
No,
like just like at the powwow.
no, haven't built up those skills yet.
No.
No.
Okay. It looks like people are still joining, but we're gonna get started to make sure that we get through this on time. So thank you, Tawao, Tansei. Thank you for joining Decolonizing through visiting and how to decolonize the workplace. So I will introduce myself really quickly and then I'll pass it over to my friend, Elliott. So my name is Shani Gwynn. I am the founder of pipikwan pêhtâkwan. We're an Indigenous-owned, led, and majority staffed public relations agency. We also support engagement projects, which is a new service that we brought on last year, and that is what Elliott does for us. We will be, just to know a little bit about my connections, I'm connected to the Cunningham clan through my mother's side. The Cunninghams are a Métis family that settled in St. Albert, Alberta, when it used to be a Métis settlement. I'm also connected to the Ferguson clan, a Métis family that settled in Spirit River, Alberta. And I'm also, they are from Gruard, but settled in Spirit River. And I'm also a descendant of Michelle First Nation. So First Nation that was enfranchised in the 50s by the Indian agent at the time. So through the government of Canada, their relationship with me is as a Métis person. I do not have status, but I always honor my First Nations and Métis heritage. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. They're beautiful, hilarious human beings, and they bring me a lot of joy. I'm married to my partner, Trevor, who is very supportive and puts up with whatever I am a lot. And I also have a dog, Jenny, and that is about me. I'll pass it over to Elliott.
Thanks, Johnny. Elliott Young, Nasigasun. My name is Elliott Young. I'm from Ermineskin Cree Nation, which is about an hour south of Edmonton. It's one of the 4 nations that make up Musqueam. That's where my dad is from Ermineskin. So I have a lot of family from Ermineskin connected to the Young family, the Mines, the Wildcats. And I also have a lot of family from Louisville tribe, which is located, which is one of the other 4 nations that make up Musqueam. My gokom on my mom's side married into Louisville tribe, so I have a lot of family in there. But my mom and my gokom are actually from a First Nation located down south by Calgary, so Sutana, and I'm connected to the Starlight families down there and the McGinnises. Yeah. So I have a lot of family from Musqueam, from Sutana down south, and then also my late great gokom Emma Mind is originally a Memnook from the Saddle Lake area. So anybody that happens to be from the Saddle Lake area, if you know Emma Mind, I'm distantly related to a lot of people from the Saddle Lake area as a Memnook. I've been living in Edmonton, Miskutsi for the past 18 years. It's where I came to school and where my wife and I had stayed to start our careers, and it's where we stayed to build our family. We have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old and a little dog named Toby. And I've been the director of engagement here at pipikwan pêhtâkwan for just over a year. And so it's been really good work. And that's me. Over to you, Shani.
All right. Our next slide, please. Someone help me. Thank you. So this is our team. This is pipikwan pêhtâkwan. What a beautiful group of people. Don't you think? I think so. One of my most favorite compliments that we get very consistently is that our team is kind. And they are so kind. They work so hard and well together. And we protect the special place by decolonizing every day. Sometimes it's weird, it's messy, it's silly. Sometimes it makes no sense, but a lot of the time it feels good. And when you have that feeling, that gut feeling, and it matches that feeling of fullness in your heart, then I think that's when we all know that we're on the right path and that we're doing the right thing for us and decolonizing our special place. And what I love about this is you can look at this picture and it's really representative of our city, of our people, and everyone is just so smart and special and unique in their way. And anyway, I could talk about them forever, but they're pretty fabulous. So that's pipikwan. That's our crew. When we place ourselves, you heard Elliott and I share a bit earlier that where we are from, who our parents are, who our dogs are. Oh my gosh, when you're in a meeting with a bunch of Native people, we're going to take up the introduction for a half an hour because we're going to try and find a way to connect with you. And that's really what this is about. It's based in our Indigenous knowledge system. It focuses on relationships, family, and community. And it's okay to get comfortable with this process. I know in colonized workplaces, we come into a meeting and we're like, hey, I'm Shani. I work in communications. Anyway, here's what we need to know. And this is what I need to know it by, and blah, 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 and all to business. For Indigenous people, we like to build trust and understand each other and understand how we're connected. And this comes from information sharing, but also accountability. It focuses on our relationships to our family. It helps us place based on location and relationality. And it's an important way of sharing, and it helps us inform your perspective, how you may be connected to others in the circle. You might start with your name, where you were born, who you come from, your parents' names, your ancestral background, your relationship to a community or your role within a community, your connection to community. We want to know who claims you. What's your responsibility to that relation, to that land? And we also want to know who are you outside of that job title or education, because trust and accountability is also built through kinship. I know for newcomers, especially in North America, when someone asks you where are you from, that could be a bit traumatizing or triggering. And when an Indigenous person comes to you, says, where are you from? And you say Canada, and they say, but where are you really from? We're coming from this Indigenous place of knowing and connecting. How do I know you? What do we have in common? How did you get here? It's important for us to understand your relationship to the land because we believe we are made of it. We have a direct relationship to this land. I have a direct relationship to the land in Calahoo, which is where Michelle used to be in Calahoo, Alberta. I have a direct relationship to Lesser Slave Lake because that's where a lot of my relatives are from. I am born of that land. So when we want to know where you're from, we want to know where you're from that land. We are really just trying to get to know you. We want to know who your family and friends are, if you have a dog. And through that, that's how we recognize how we actually are connected. Oh, I saw someone in there say that they had the same name as my dog. All right, we're already connected through that. We can talk about that. And I can tell you the story about how my dog got the name Jenny from my 5-year-old daughter. it's just a great way to find positive connections. And when you're in Indigenous communities, you might hear those introductions a bit differently. It'll be like, oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Frog Lake. Oh, yeah. Who's your mom? Don't know her. Who's your cook? Okay. Who's this? Who's that? Oh, I know your cousin. We used to work together and party back in the day or whatever they got up to. And again, it just helps build that trust and that accountability. And so that's a little bit about why we place ourselves that way. And it's trying to remove ourselves out of that transactional type of interaction that we're very used to on a day-to-day.
Thanks, Johnny. That reminds me, actually, we were hosting a session on Tuesday for one of our projects, and the person beside me introduced themselves, and they were like, "Yeah, my mom's from Ermineskin Cree Nation," and I'm just like, "Okay." And immediately, I like when it came to me when I should have been introducing myself, I'm like, "Who's your mom? What's her last name? Where is she from?" And we found out that we're actually related. So it is a practice of like practicing relationality, practicing that interconnection, and really being able to just see how we're related. And we'll share the importance of that in the way that we do our work at pipikwan pêhtâkwan, but how we just connect with each other internally. And I'm having a hard time not getting distracted by the chat, by everybody like placing themselves in there. And I'm just like, am I related to any of you? Maybe.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, probably most likely related. Hey, cousin. So why visiting? The agenda, we're just going to talk about a bit about why visiting. Why is that the approach that we use? Why does it kind of build the foundation as a company, but also the work that we do, the approach to the work that we do? What is colonization? I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Get everybody interacting with something in a moment. Going to explore a little bit about settler colonization and what does decolonization mean within that space. Going to talk about decolonizing through visiting. And then going to touch a bit on decolonization here at pipikwan pêhtâkwan, and if we have time, it'll be maybe a blend of like, what does decolonization look like to you, but also some questions or some Q&A in that space. So let me go to the next one. So why visiting? Why does this kind of align so much with what we do? And it's an Indigenous research methodology that has been developed and is emerging by an Indigenous scholar here at the University of Alberta in the faculty of St. John. It's Dr. Cindy Gaudet. Through her work in her own community to start looking at kind of traditional governance practices, she found that visiting, the actual practice of visiting, that can be sometimes seen as like a passive way of interacting with people. Like it doesn't feel like it feels like it's more social than anything. And of course there is a concept, there's a part of it that is very much social, but the important piece is building that relationship, dedicating time, being very intentional with the responsibility, the accountability, and the reciprocity, and building and maintaining that relationship that is important to the way that we work at pipikwan pêhtâkwan. So it impacts both internally what we do, but also externally of what we expect our work to look like, and our relationships that we build with community, with partners, with clients, what that would look like. And so it keeps us accountable to our values, our kind of 7 natural laws of being founded within an Indigenous way of knowing. So I wanted to start off with that, really talk about visiting and why it's so important. Then we're going to dive into some aspects of what does visiting look like. But before we dive into a little bit more of what that looks like, please go to slido.com. and hit in the code 3998484, or you can use the QR code. I want to ask one question about what are examples of colonization in business or your workplace. This is something that we just to get an idea of kind of tangible things that you're seeing today, and we might be able to make some parallels to that. Might be some connections in the work that we do, but it's good to see that it's actually something that's tangible. So while you're doing that, I'm going to make sure that Slido is actually ready to go. So
in the meantime, you can refer to Elliott as chief going forward. That's how he likes to be addressed at our company. So.
Oh my gosh. So we practice the healing practice of humor quite a bit, and teasing, and sorry, I'm getting distracted by all these already. Oh my gosh, people are very active. Okay, so organizational structures and hierarchies, transactional interactions, board of directors. Yes. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Whoa. There's so many people. Okay. Robert's rules of order. That's a really interesting one. Yes. Meritocracy. Individual offices. Oh, look at that. There are like things on here too. Professionalism. Oh, I was just talking about professionalism and how it's a colonial concept this morning. It's really interesting. Sticking to a tight meeting agenda. Yeah. I always, in engagement sessions, I always give like 10 minutes for like introductions, and we blow that 10 minutes like out of the water. It's always way longer. And that's my fault. That's my colonial brain thinking that we can go through introductions quickly. More males in higher positions. Anything stand out for you, Johnny?
Well, there's so much, but I was wondering if perfectionism was in there at all, but that kind of falls into professionalism.
Yeah. Any emphasis on profits before anything else?
I was also reading your note where it says, I'm conscious of safety and making sure that you are anonymous with your answers. So all answers provided will be anonymous. So feel free to share, except for Shani.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that.
But I shared anyway.
Oh my gosh, you guys have 90 responses here. Okay, let me go to the top and see what human resource, hustle and grind culture. Yeah. Tokenism. Yeah, smudging in event spaces. Yeah. Change professionalism, communicating through email.
Oh, there's perfection. Yeah, time.
Yep, time. Okay.
Media bias.
Is that in there? Yeah.
Yes. Good one.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I didn't expect this big of a response. So we'll try to.
Can we maybe theme them for folks? And
yeah, I can share this. We can share this with everybody that participated, just for your knowledge. We can share this with you and show what oh yeah, productivity. Show what there might be some common pieces. Yeah, no emotions allowed. I feel like that's tied to professionalism. Flexible time for ceremony. Oh, food choices. Oh, interesting. Oh. If we were in person, that's when I'd be like, please expand. Tell me more. And that's after I tell people that they're safe and I won't call them out. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Please tell me more.
I think it probably has less to do with like people who would come from different cultures and their food choices not being accepted in the workplace and things like that, as being like stinky or weird or ooh, and like people don't even know the faces they're making when they're seeing something different, instead of just being like, oh, that's nice that you have a cool type of food that I've never seen before, instead of being judgmental about it because it's not from this society that the dominant population
So what you're saying is I can't like fry up spam in the kitchen?
You can.
That
Just
organizing?
when you bring your moose nose soup to your next training session with one of corporate Canada, they might feel scared.
Bring my bologna sandwich. I'm just joking. I hate bologna. I was like the younger brother that had to eat bologna because my
I
older
can't
brother did.
believe that you hate bologna. It's friends off. Um,
Okay, thank you so much for doing that. That's really interesting. I will commit to sending all of that to everyone that participated. It's an easy report to to do, and so I'll share that with everyone. But I will move on to the next one. And Shani.
sure. So colonialism or colonization isn't an event or wasn't an event. It's ongoing and it's a structure. So what does that mean? It means that the structures, systems, and institutions that we interact with on a daily basis are built and continue to operate today on a foundation built by colonization. Settler colonization contributes to the ongoing impacts of systemic oppression and racism. It means that as much as there may be well-intended non-Indigenous people, the systems they work in are meant to oppress, erase, and at times be violent towards folks who are considered marginalized or a minority. The problem with this is that essentially everything in this world is made up, but it's made up and built to benefit the dominant population. So any policies, guidelines, laws, cities, infrastructure, media, it's 2023 and people can't handle seeing a mixed race couple in a Cheerios ad because Cheerios weren't made for mixed race couples, I guess. So decolonizing systems includes workplaces, businesses, and it begs asking questions over and over again. Who is this for? Why was it created? What's the purpose? Does it cause harm? Does it benefit certain people over others? Decolonizing your workplace means putting inclusion into action. It means walking in like a 5-year-old, like my son Charlie, just asking why. But why? But why does it have to be that way? What would society look like if we were able to have more diverse voices and ideas contributing to city plans, architecture, art, fashion, storytelling, even being part of creating and developing textbooks around history? That has all been developed through a white lens, through the dominant population. Anything you want to add there, Elio?
No, I think you're going to be touching a lot of it, what I was going to be saying in the next slide anyway. So,
Oh, you're doing this one? Okay.
no, you are.
Oh, I am. I
Yeah.
thought so.
Yeah, you. I'll
Okay.
add later. Go ahead.
My bad. So it's important to note that Indigenous people don't own decolonization. We are just part of a large majority of people who want to be included in society equally. I want to tell a little story of a visit I had recently, and I was chatting with someone in health, and we were having a private conversation, and she just said, "How do Indigenous people view health?" And I said, that is a big question. I noticed this person may have been a relative from Asia, but I didn't point anything out. I just asked, I said, well, how do you feel about health? And she's like, well, I feel about health the same way everybody else does. And I was like, well, what is that? And she's like, well, and then she starts talking about Western treatment and research and hospitals and doctors' offices, and you take Advil for a headache. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, how do your parents view health? And she kind of shot up and she was like, well, they practice more holistically. I was like, oh, what does that mean? And she's like, well, my grandparents and my parents use a lot of ancient Chinese medicine. And I said, oh, they do. I said, do they believe in Western medicine too? And she said, they do use it, but their life is guided through this way of treating illnesses. And I said, well, did you have any part in that as growing up? And she was like, I did, yeah, and I still do. And I smiled and I said, oh, that's so amazing. So how do you view health? And she just had a moment and she kind of smiled back nervously, and I could see a light bulb go off. And she realized, she said, that in order to come to her work every day, she was code switching and taking a pan-Canadian approach to her work. She wasn't bringing her own lived experience and ancient knowledge when looking at health. And that's colonized. Decolonizing is allowing that person to come in with their perspectives, their ancient knowledge that can actually be looked at as innovative, and being safe to share that, have people listen, consider, and look at whether it's something that they can do. I love seeing those light bulbs go off because it helps people understand that decolonizing isn't about breaking down the system and just wiping it clean and starting over. Granted, I know there's Indigenous people in this room, in this webinar, that probably could get behind that in a second. Wipe it clean, let's start over. But decolonizing is really about including us and what we know, not dismissing us as silly or weird. It's okay to be uncomfortable and learn something different that's not normal. I'll tell you, acupuncture saved my life after my 2 giant babies. I had 2 10-pound babies. Acupuncture, Chinese medicine. Hi, I'm for it. I also use Western medicine, and it saved me with pneumonia. And I'm also using traditional Naheiwan treatments like rat root for a cold, or I smudge in my mornings, and I set intentions to walk with love in my heart. Decolonizing is an opportunity to truly be innovative. The way that society is set up now, it's not working because we aren't putting our people first. Instead, we're putting money and perfectionism first, and that's slowly killing us and our mother, the land.
Thanks, Shani. The only thing that I'll add to this is touching on the first part of like not binary to colonization, and Shani has given a really good example of this, that colonization is not everything opposite, or decolonization is not everything opposite to colonization. Some of it might be in the sense of like land back and like give us land back, but a lot of it is the incorporation of different knowledge systems into existing systems, or replacing those systems. Through work that we've done in the innovation space within Edmonton, we saw this shift of like innovation that wasn't necessarily new ideas, new things, like that piece was not how the Indigenous community connected with innovation. It was actually through the resurgence of traditional practices, of Indigenous ways of knowing, and putting them into existing systems. So instead of innovation, it was actually resurgence. So it's different ways of looking at decolonization. What does that mean? And again, an opportunity instead of a risk. This is where again, I was talking about this earlier. Decolonization does not have a playbook. It does not have guides step by step. And so instead of viewing that as a risk of the unknown, it's actually a really good opportunity of trying new things, bringing resurgence back into your practice. But along with that, there is, I would say, opportunities to fail and to fail forward and to continually learn. And so what that looks like at pipikwan pêhtâkwan is, a lot of it is through visiting, is through the concept of really centering relationships, of recentering the authority that we have in the way of relating to ourselves culturally, spiritually, and in social context. That will then lead into the way that we enter into different spaces politically, professionally, any kind of spaces around governance and doing the work that we do. And so this is really a unique space for us to change the way that we do things at pipikwan pêhtâkwan that center that relationship. And it means that we're trying new things. We're bringing in practices that look at resurgence. And the way that we do our work in externally with clients. And I want to share. I want to share this one example that we did with one of the projects that we had. I had the opportunity to host a session that had elders and knowledge keepers, and the way that we structured was intentionally around visiting. That we spent the session started at 11:30. The first half hour was really just bringing people up to speed on what the project was, some introductions, and a quick outline of what we're going to do for the rest of the day. And then from 12 to 1, it was just eating and visiting. We dedicated that time just to eat and visit, and for people just to build those relationships. And then from 1 to about 4 o'clock, we asked questions. We engaged them into a conversation, a dialogue, and the way that visiting set up that conversation is that it just felt like an extension of that visiting, of that relationship building. And when you do it through this, it's amazing to be able to reflect on that and be like, this is my job. This is my job, to be able to create these spaces and learn so much from the teachings of elders and knowledge keepers, and being, again, to kind of create that space and see how we can do new things at pipikwan pêhtâkwan. And so a lot of the visiting is important for us internally, because if we expect our clients, our partners, the communities that we engage with to practice visiting, we should be practicing it internally. And that's reflected in the time that we dedicate to connections and to relationship building. And from an example that was given in the what does colonization look like, a lot of it is around connection to profit. And then when you think about kind of the private sector that Shani and I are in, like, a lot of that is tied to time and how you use your time and like billable time and all that. But we are very intentional on creating those spaces to visit, to build those relationships. I don't want to get too much into it because we'll talk about it a little bit later too. But Shani, anything to add there?
I think I'll probably in the next slide I have some stuff I can share about it.
There you go.
Oh, wow, thank you. So decolonization at pipikwan pêhtâkwan. Shout out to my friend Maya, who's here, who reminded me that I'm the boss and I can have a 4-day work week if I want to. So thanks, Maya. So our values are built on natural law. Our natural law that guides us is kindness, honesty, sharing, strength. Some people use strength or respect interchangeably. So again, that's kindness, honesty, sharing, strength, or respect. And at the center of that is always love. And I know that's a weird thing to talk about when you're talking about work. You're talking about a corporation or organization. But this is what guides us every day. And when we notice that someone is off track, we say, hey, are you tired? Are you doing okay? Do you need a little bit of time off? Do you need a day or two? But we also ask people to be accountable to their own, and say, I'm not doing so hot. I need a break. And we work together and we pull together as a team to support that person who needs some time. And that's how a lot of our trust is built, by being there for each other and through this visiting that Elliott talked about. Every morning we spend 30 minutes together. Sometimes we're brainstorming, sometimes we're reviewing processes, sometimes we're talking about Evan's cat's butt that keeps coming right into center frame nonstop. We can draw that thing from scratch, I'm pretty sure. Sometimes we just talk and learn about each other's lives and what people are like, what music they're listening to. Sometimes we cry, but we mostly laugh a lot, and usually at Elliott's expense. And so we don't really, we laugh, we like to roast and tease each other. So we also received our name in ceremony. So when you go to ceremony, you do a lot of preparation to go and set an intention and put together protocol, and you go in and you don't know what name you're going to receive. And part of renaming this company from Gwyn Communications to pipikwan pêhtâkwan was Gwyn Communications is a very colonial name. Gwyn is a Welsh last name. As I hired my first hire, I was like, okay, well, this isn't about me now anymore. This isn't about people finding me easily. This is going to be about more people. And so when we went to ceremony, we didn't know the name we were going to get. And we went in and we got pipikwan pêhtâkwan. Eagle bone whistle heard loudly. The elder shared that in ceremony, a specific ceremony, that an eagle bone whistle is used to call and wake the ancestors for ceremony. And he said, our name translates to an eagle bone whistle that will be heard so loudly before ceremony that it'll wake the ancestors across Turtle Island. So not a bad name for a PR and an engagement agency with a very big responsibility. We have to go in with faith and believe that some things are bigger than ourselves. We are just pitiful human beings, and we can make this world whatever we want. It's our human nature to create and recreate, and decolonizing is recreating. And it's also using money as love, which I learned from some friends of ours at Raven Capital. Instead of using it to have power over. Every Friday, everyone on the team gets a paid Friday off. Interns get a paid half day off if they work part-time, or they get a full day paid off on a Friday if they work full-time. Our interns are paid above minimum wage, and they get a completion bonus at the end of their internship, not based on performance. We pay for portions of internet and phone bills. We hold circles and keep each other accountable, and we ensure that we are kind in our honesty, and we're always looking for clarity out of curiosity, not for the benefit or of one over the other. We have an on-staff elder. People can meet with her at any time for support, or bring their projects to her, or bring her on their projects. She starts every morning with us during that visiting with a smudge and a prayer. We have 360 evaluations. Our org chart is hierarchical for approvals and reviewing processes, but it's truly reflective of a circle. I am the founder and the boss. but I also need people to keep me humble and accountable. People have to share their honesty with me in a kind way, and I have to reciprocate that. Otherwise, it won't work. Because when we're in that circle, we all have the same role. That hierarchy at work, that doesn't mean people are better than you or know more than you. And so looking at that circle process, it allows us to all sit back and be real and bring ourselves to work. At pipikwan, we encourage mistakes and forgiveness. You can forget to order stew for ceremony, and you're not going to get fired. You might feel shame, but it won't be from us. We will work together to make things happen because we are human beings. We make mistakes, and that's how we learn. People have flexibility and trust. We ask that you're available between office hours by phone, text, GChat, or email. And if you won't be for any reason at all, you just have to let us know. We won't bug you. Go get your hair cut. Get in line for your new iPhone. Go take care of your sick mom. It's all good. We just need to know when you'll be back, and if you're flexing your hours, if your deadlines will be met on time, and if you're delivering quality, good work, then we're good. We work on trust. We work on bringing as much of yourself to work that you're comfortable with. And we also like having fun together. I really encourage our team consistently to reconnect with that gut feeling, to really understand that, because this is important, but decolonizing is actually remembering that feeling down here in your gut. What is it that I know is good for me? What do I know is good for this project? Why am I scared to bring this forward? Always listen to yourself and trust that that is decolonizing. And it's a hard one to shake. We're all working on it every day. We're all so scared. But when we get out of our fear, so many things, amazing things happen. And people really don't care about you as much as you think they do. As much as you think that they're like stressing about you, they're already stressing about how they think someone else is perceiving them. So yeah. Elliott?
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. I have a couple of things to add, and one is that decolonization is a process. So there's no kind of end goal for this, but there's also a realization that as much as we are trying to decolonize the way that we work with each other and the way that we work with the community and our clients and partners, there's limitations to it. We are like no other consulting firm, in the sense of like, we have to balance this decolonization with being successful. And so it's a tough balance of like realizing that we want to decolonize what we do and how we do it, but it's the reality that we're doing this all within a very colonized system, and we're interacting with colonized systems all the time. And that makes me think of even the way that we take care of each other internally, that we consistently gut check, because, and I know many of you probably have felt this way, it's that constant kind of questioning, gaslighting yourself of saying like, should I speak up at this point? This doesn't feel right to me. I don't know what it means. I don't like, there's something telling you that like, this doesn't feel right. And so we're consistently engaging with that because we want to work with partners and clients that will actually transform and potentially decolonize. And so we're continually hitting that point, and we create space, we create relationships internally that we can gut check with each other. We can say like, this is just what just happened. Am I seeing something differently? And we constantly do that because we know that we're trying to make change. We're trying to transform, but we're working within systems that could potentially be triggering and could potentially be harmful. So it's consistently at that space. The last thing I want to say about decolonization within pipikwan pêhtâkwan is that we're constantly learning, and at the same time we're like that encourage mistakes and forgiveness. That's also at like a Shani level of you're going to be creating new systems of working together, of changing HR practices, and we need to bring resurgence back into it. And so there's a lot of forgiveness and kind of failing forward throughout the whole organization.
I'm gonna jump back in. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Another thing that we do is we really elevate women. And it's actually one of the parts of my vision is to elevate women, Black women, Indigenous women, folks that are from the LGBTQ2S+ community, because those are the people that are often overlooked. And those are the ones that are so creative. They have so many ideas. They bring so much to the table. And they actually are way better at decolonizing because we've never really been part of that dominant population. In some ways, yes, we benefit for sure. But with women, we can look at people on the team and say, you know what, you might not be good at that, but I know you have strengths and I see them. And I want to honor that. And let's see what we can make work. And we're not going to fire you because you had, and sometimes you have a really bad day, because you can be extremely traumatized in this work. And so sometimes someone's going to act out in a way that you're like, whoa, why are you treating me like this way? But the answer really is like, what's going on with you? Are you okay? This is not behavior that I've seen from you before. And so with women, I think we're able to take our rightful place in this company as the visionaries and the leaders, as the fire keepers. And there's a few men around, like Elliott, and he does stuff. No, I'm just kidding. But we are reclaiming our role just right alongside the men, because one of the teaching I said was that I was taught was an eagle can't fly with one wing. So men and women both are on that eagle, and sometimes that eagle needs to take a far deep turn, and that's when the women need to take over, and maybe on the side the men need to take over, but it always has to coast and come back to that balance. And so that's something that we take very seriously, even in our hiring practices. Sometimes I'm always just like manifesting a woman. I'm like, let's manifest women applicants. And Elliott's like, oh, you're annoying. Anyway, that's the only thing I wanted to add. Sorry.
Oh, to make me sound real sexist.
Yeah.
No, I'm not discouraging women from
he's always supporting me. Sorry, I should not tease a few like that in front of all these people that we don't know.
No, I'm just joking. Okay, I'm getting conscious of time, and I do want to have some time for people to ask questions. The next two slides are really just reflecting some of the questions that we asked our team about kind of what does decolonization look like at pipikwan pêhtâkwan. So if you take a look through here, it's a lot of kind of what we've already shared around mental health check-ins, clarity is kindness, the natural laws, 4-day work week. It's really about that relational piece and how we move forward. The next one is a bit about what does decolonization look like with the work with our clients. We kind of move where the work takes us. We do stress a lot, especially on the engagement side, about process, not necessarily the outcome or the deliverables. We stress a lot about process and the importance of process, and really incorporating as much connections back to ceremony as possible. and again, like we have a lot of forgiveness with ourselves of ensuring that we're going back to ceremony, but we're learning a lot of the time because we're connecting with different communities, we're connecting with different knowledge keepers and elders, and we're consistently learning. Okay, Shani, anything to say about the last two slides? I can't see you, so I don't know if you like left or something.
Well, I put myself on mute, so that's an issue. I just love hearing from the team about what they see as decolonization, because it's one thing for me to come out here and be like, I'm the boss and this is how I think it is, because I've been at the bottom and I know what it's like when a boss is out talking about how great it is to work somewhere when it's really soul crushing. So it's really important to me that we are in this circle, that people don't see me as big scary person, that they feel that they can come and talk to me and tell me what they need, and or anyone, and that they know that we're going to be willing to hear them. So seeing that they like these things, that it brings benefit to their lives, that people are willing to take pay cuts for this crazy startup, and they're happier than they've ever been. People joke they're never leaving. We haven't had anybody quit. And so to me, that's proof that this is all honesty. And that's all I strive for from my team, is just honesty and kindness, clarity, ask questions out of curiosity, and for Stephanie Joe to continually roast us all to the end of time.
Agreed. Okay, so I want to get to questions, but I also, before we jump into questions, because I already see that there's a question in the chat, and please do, while I'm doing this last little bit of messages, feel free to put a question in the Q&A or even in the chat. We'll monitor both. But want to say that the transcript, the recording will be available through the same link for the webinar. So if you just click on the same link, that it will bring you back to the recording. And a bit of a shameless plug for us is, why can't I do it? Oh, never mind. It looks like it's not coming up. Is that we have an open house here. Actually, let me just do something different here, because it's right here, and then that way you'll see it. There we go. Let me do it that way. Here we go. You're invited to our 7th anniversary open house next Wednesday, April 26th, 5 to 8. You can see us in person and ask us a bunch of questions. You can witness how all of them roast me. Yeah, whatever you want to do. But okay, so I wanted to look at, I wanted to see this question here. I don't know if you were able to read it, Shani, or not. Do you think that's
the question?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat.
Okay, in the Q&A or the chat, because there's two in the Q&A.
Okay, so maybe I'll look at this one first. Do you think that since a lot of things haven't been measured or been taken into account for that change is hindered, since awareness seems to be at first all things evolving, understanding and agreeing to who you are receiving into community is helpful, not just pushes. Oh, never mind. Is that a question? Or Janelle? I think Janelle, that's your question. I guess I don't know if that makes sense.
I can try and see if I can answer that, because I think okay. I think what you might be asking is that that because decolonization is like this new idea and there aren't like statistics and like how this is successful. But I think qualitative is so important. And I encourage people to reach out to people on our team and ask them like, how has this impacted them? We've been doing a few chats even about the 4-day work week, and people want to know like, what are the risks? And there are none. there are no risks. Yeah, you kind of have to understand like how much money do you have to make? How many hours do people have to make? But it's all possible, and it hasn't hindered it. All it's done is created more trust and more collaboration and more commitment to our company, I think. And I hope maybe that's a little bit of what you were looking for, because I know a lot of colonized institutions will want the statistics, but I think it's okay to just try something new off a gut feeling, like going to ceremony and getting your name off a gut feeling. And I saw Nolan, and he's right, like decolonizing for Indigenous people, like we're colonized, so we have to keep working on it. We have to go to ceremony, we have to learn our languages, we got to go spend time with elders, and that's how we get better at knowing that gut feeling and knowing who we are and feeling comfortable in that.
Thanks, Shani. Do you want to take a stab at the questions that are in the Q&A?
You want me to stab somebody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
How do you address gender outside of the binary? I guess I could ask that in how do we write about it, or how do we work with our team? With our team, we ask people to identify and to please be transparent as much as they feel comfortable, so that they can be their authentic selves at work. So if you identify as he, they, or they, them, or there's certain things you want us to know about that, we actually have this amazing thing that Shauna Kay put together. It's a tracker, and it actually just helps us go and look and be like, this is how this person likes to be recognized. This is how they like to be identified. This person prefers to have us celebrate their birthday. This person wants a handwritten card. So we're actually looking at people first. It's not really like a pan approach. It's like looking at people as an individual as often as we can, and also relying on them to correct us in a kind way, and knowing that we're coming from a kind place. If it's not kind, then yeah, give us a whack. But that's and then when we write about it, we really try to validate whoever we're interviewing, and we try to be as inclusive as possible and not lump people into these groups like we do use LGBTQ2S plus, and we also we stopped using BIPOC, but we're trying to figure out ways, and that's an ongoing thing with language being so fluid. So do you want to take this next question, or you want me to, Elliot?
Let me see here. Interested in stifling effects of colonization on organization. I think from the engagement side, it's definitely there in the way that engagement can at times be viewed as like consultation. And so being able to navigate that space in a way that shows that engagement and the way that visiting happens is really about creating conversation, creating opportunities for relationship building. And so when you get organizations that are very much used to doing kind of the big C consultation, it can be very difficult to try and create spaces that really center relationship building. That's from my side. I don't know. Shani, your team is like the creative geniuses within pipikwan. So
yes, we are geniuses. No, we're all very creative. I think what I would say about decolonization and creativity is that colonization is harming you, period. So once you start decolonizing and learning about who you are and how you actually want to be in this world and what's true to you and what calls you, I think Gabor Mate said, people become frustrated when we can't express ourselves, and it's our human nature to create or recreate something. And so when we're being hemmed back, then we can't express ourselves in a way that's healthy and creative and innovative. We're actually missing out. And that's why I think when we think of the system that it is now, what would it look like if Indigenous people weren't held back? And I mean physically, emotionally, spiritually, every sense of the way held back. What if they were free to create? What if they were free to innovate? Like, it's insane what comes from our team, the ideas, when they're not scared, when they know there isn't going to be judgment. We might tease you a little bit out of love, but we know that you're going to come up with some really amazing ideas. And you should see, we just did a presentation this morning from actually my first staff member, Robin. I don't know if she's here, but I'm always so proud of her because she just pushes, and she is scared sometimes, but she sits with it, and she takes time, and she reflects, and she thinks about, okay, what is this really about? How can I do this in a way that feels good for me? And that's important at work. We spend so much time at work. My friend Katie says 70% living, 30% working. So I think we need to somehow get back to that percentage. But yeah, I do believe colonization impacts creativity. Even think of that woman I shared that story about in the context of health. She has been limited in her creativity because she didn't think she could bring her holistic view of health to work. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting all fired up.
No, totally fine. I'm wondering about timing, and I think I love all these questions, but maybe for the last question, you want to explain the logo and the significance of the 4 stripes and the colors?
Sure. And I'm okay to stay a little bit late to answer some of these other questions. I don't have anything next if you want, Elliott. So it's no big deal. Our logo and the significance. So the logo is about our name. So I reached out to an artist, Kevin Cardinal. He's from Big Stone. And he's a visionary, and he's not a graphic designer. He is an artist. So when I went to him, I was like, I know I have to trust in this process because I can't tell him exactly what I want. But I said to him, I'm like, I shared with him our mission, our vision, our values, our name, how important it is that we are women-led, and that we are amplifying Indigenous peoples, our truths, our successes. And this is what he came up with in one night. He sent this to me over text, and I was like, okay, that's beautiful. And I'm crying. So the 4 calls are representing the eagle call, the eagle bone whistle of the 4 directions, which have significance in our culture. And then the bottom layer is our mission. Oh my gosh, hang on. Now I got to go to our website and just double check. Anybody on the team in the chat, help me. I think it's, so each layer represents our vision, our mission, our values. And then the sun in the bowl is a little smudge that he is overseeing and calling out to the ancestors. But each of these blocks are a foundational piece of our company. And then he added pink because of women. So, and then we had our designers on our team vectorize it and create that. And then some of the secondary elements are those colors on the side. And we like four directions. While those colors don't align with that, we liked the 4. And those colors are pulled from the logo just to help give some dynamic pieces to the logo, make it look even prettier. Oh, Jocelyn, thank you. She's doing it all for me. You're the bomb. Do you want to answer this next question?
Sure. The Naheoan part of decolonization. Um, I I think there's a really important intention of incorporating Indigenous knowledge, and specifically with your question, Naheoan. But it's also, how would I say it? There's an understanding that the reality is many people, especially within our team, that have connections to being Naheoan or Naheoak, we're all on different paths of learning. And so, especially with being able to be fluent or understanding Naheoan and its importance to treaty, to land, natural law, like Wakotowin, Miopi Matsawin, Wichitowin, like all of this is important, but we're all on different levels of it. So really thinking about how those connections make, or how the understandings of those words that are connected to treaty, land, natural law, how they can be incorporated into the work that we do. And you can see even by the visiting way, it's very much about Mio Wakotoan. It's about building good relationships, being in good relationality with each other. And Mio Wakotoan is one of the teachings of natural law, of treaty of land, of being in good relations with each other, with the land, with kind of all beings that make us up. And so we're not perfect in it. We're still very much on the learning side of it, and that's why we are continually connecting with elders, with knowledge keepers, with community members to ensure that we're understanding Naheoan, but also because many of us are from this area, but there are many of us in our community or within pipikwan pêhtâkwan that are not Naheoan. There's some that are Mi'kmaq, and so it's really being able to use Indigenous research methodologies and that is informed by concepts that are based within Naheoan, and how does that move our work forward. Shani, I don't know if you have anything else to add, but that's what jumps into me.
I would just add that I think almost all of the people that identify as Cree or Naheoan that want to learn Naheoan is that they're all on their own individual journey to learn. And we do incorporate that actually in a lot of our internal communications in pipikwan. We use our newsletter is called Apsis, and we have another newsletter called Astamitso, which is our lunch and learn, which is come and eat. And so we do try to incorporate it. And I also saw Lisa Richards was in the chat, and her and I had a great connection in Grand Prairie not that long ago. And she's going to come in and start teaching our team more about Naheoan so that our team has access to that, because it is important. And it is important that that we are always spending time with elders. And that's one time I get jealous of the engagement team. They always get to be with elders all the time. We do too, but not as much as you guys. But also hit up Lisa for Cree lessons. Is your company entirely in person, or do you have some work remotely? Any reflections or lessons learned from maintaining and enriching your workplace culture and values virtually through the pandemic versus in person? We are a bit of a hybrid, but we're majority remote. So most of our team is in Edmonton. We have staff in Calgary, High Prairie, Winnipeg, Halifax, and soon to be announced in another place that I won't say right now. Airdrie, thank you. But there's another team member joining soon. But people have access to a co-working space. So in Calgary and Edmonton, people can go there, get together, and we find that's really important. We also do retreats, and we try to gather as much as possible. When we do have big events, like we just did the Junos, we made sure we all celebrated and went to the Junos together and had dinner and visited and celebrated and spent time together. That because when you are working remotely, it can get isolating. Lessons learned from maintaining and enriching your workplace and culture. Honestly, when it's remote, you cannot talk enough. If you think you've shared something, share it again. You're having so many different meetings all the time with different people that sometimes you think you might be communicating things, but it's easy for it to get lost. And so I think also nailing down your processes, where there's some fluidity and where things have to be, because even though in decolonizing, it doesn't mean, I think it was Matt that said that. He said, decolonizing isn't just getting to do whatever you want. And that is true, because in our old ways, there were laws, there were still ways of knowing and doing. We still had governance and systems. And so it's establishing those that work for us. And we do that, and we have to rely on each other. So when I talk about accountability and communication, a lot of that is each other talking to each other, keeping them accountable, saying, oh, I thought you said you're going to do this. No, you misheard me. I actually said this, blah, 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 blah. And it's all coming from a place of honesty and clarity and not throwing people under the bus. And that has taken us a while because we all have work trauma. So I think patience, starting sentences with, I'm just asking this out of curiosity because I need clarity. Are you open to feedback? People aren't used to that kind of truth without it being hidden by a transaction of some kind to benefit the other person. So I think that's important. Through the pandemic, we didn't meet a lot of our staff for 6 months after we hired them, and that was wild. I think what we're trying to do now is my best bud Shauna is helping me and Elliott figure out how to get our team together more often on a regular basis, because we are so spread out. But that is one thing I would say is, like, it's worth spending money on your team. It's worth spending money on your team because they're happy and you get to be together. You understand each other better. We don't have to be together every day, but it is good to have that time together. And I finally made one thing mandatory this week, and everybody thought they were in trouble because I never make anything mandatory. So, but I wanted us all to get together, and I made that mandatory. So there's ways of doing it. Just do what feels good for you. Elliott?
Oh, nothing to add. I think you essentially said everything that I would have said. Do you want to try answering the last one?
Sure. I am a settler from great-grandparents. What is your advice to the settlers in this webinar in terms of the workplace? We are here to unlearn and listen to contribute to changes. I'm also here because I resonate with Indigenous culture over Canadian structured culture. Oh, cool. I think we're all ready for change in the workplace. The pandemic showed us that there's a lot of power, obviously, with people who pay your livelihood. And we were able to show them that we can still do it in a pandemic. We were actually probably working more than we should have been in the pandemic. And then there was this like blur between home and work. But I think people from past generations have hard times with change, but what they don't realize is that they always have been part of change. And change is good. Change is healthy. Change is positive. The more we look at ways of like, how are we the same? How am I truly connected to you? Even if you feel you're not connected to someone at all, like sometimes you just meet someone and you're like, oh, I'm already annoyed by you. But it's like, just take a minute and just talk with them, and you'll be surprised. And I think that's one of the problems with society today is we're very much pushed to be individualists and isolated, and we can still be individuals as part of a collective that care about each other and want to work together to honor each other. It can be tough. There's still going to be hurt feelings. There's still going to be sadness. There's still going to be misunderstandings, but we can really work together to listen and try our best to just respect each other. And that's what this is really about. It's like baby stuff. It's like what we teach our kids. Share, be kind, tell people how you feel. It's okay to be mad, but don't take it out on anybody. You know, it's just getting back to that. And I think if you simplify it and you can even just leave the word Indigenous out of it, because it really isn't just about Indigenous people, it's about healing our society and getting back to having more of a community feel. I went on vacation with my parents to Mexico last week, and it was the best. I was like, one day I'd make breakfast, and then I'd drive them around, and then my mom would make me a sandwich, and then she like hung up my clothes that I forgot to do. And I'm like, oh, like this is what it's like when we're all supposed to just like be living together and supporting each other and not like keeping score of what one person did over the other, because we were all equally contributing. And that's just it. We all can equally contribute in a way that we have strengths, and we can forego the weaknesses because someone else probably is stronger in that weakness. I don't know. I can go off for years. Elliott's like, I'm bored.
No, I wanted you to go first on that one because you can provide a really good lens to that. Because where I went to initially was, I wouldn't say not great, but it's a cautionary thing of where and Michelle will probably hate that I'm using this. It depends because the one thing I wouldn't, you have to find balance in your approach of not relying too heavy on your allies within this space or the people that you're going to be amplifying, because you put a lot of that work on their shoulders. But at the same time, you don't want to be too much of an ally that you're then taking up space where other people should have their voice amplified. And so that's where I went immediately. And I'm like, that's probably not going to be very helpful with you. It'll probably, the thing that I don't want you to do is have analysis or paralysis by analysis. And I just would want you to be very reflective about your role and what space you would go for. Because there's advocating when you're speaking on behalf of somebody, but there might be a space for you to actually amplify, be an ally, or even an accomplice in that work. So I would just encourage you to reflect on what role and what language you use in that space. So,
Elliott, are you answering the one about the grandparents, or are you answering this one about advice to advocate in the organization?
Which one was the one that you just asked?
I answered, what's your advice to settlers in the webinar in terms of the workplace we are here to unlearn and listen? Oh, I guess that's the same question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the workplace one that I like.
Yeah. Sorry.
But it applies to the advocate one as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, that's it for us, folks. We're having an open house. Come by for some bannock. We're giving out some hoodies and mugs and some other swag and presents. And you can see some of the work that we've done. We're celebrating our 7th anniversary. But thank you to all who dedicated some time for us today. It was an honor to share with you, and I hope we all have a chance to connect one-on-one someday. And thanks, Elliott. You're pretty great.
You
Perfect.
too. You too. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.